Heyo everyone, what's up? It's Cinder, and in today's video, I wanted to share some tips with you guys on how you can improve your overall gameplay, which will give you the tools to win more games. These tips are based on my own experiences with Pokémon Unite, as well as what I see from other players I come across in solo queue. Currently, I'm in Master Rank with a rating of 1445, and I got there all on my own. No friends, no pre-made teams, just pure solo queue. I say this not to brag, but to instead show that I know what I'm talking about and that I'm not just doing this for clickbait or anything like that. So, if you're interested in learning how to get better and win more games, subscribe to the channel, and without further ado, let's get started. So what are these magical tips that'll help you improve your win rate? Well, there's a few of them, but they can all be summarized into one category: macro play. If you don't know what macro play is, or if you've never heard of it before, then allow me to explain. Macro play is a term that refers to a player's general game sense, game knowledge, and their ability to take the right action based on their game sense and game knowledge. It's understanding the bigger picture of the game, knowing what your objective is, and how you need to play your part to achieve that objective. It's also how you, both as a player and as a team, make decisions to try and gain an advantage over the enemy team, and then press your win conditions using that advantage. Some examples of good macro play in Pokémon Unite include going top to fight Regieleki with your team, watching the minimap to see everyone's location, helping your teammate who's getting attacked in the jungle, letting your teammate take wild Pokémon you were fighting so they can level up and evolve, farming wild Pokémon whenever you can, especially if there's a lot of them on the map, and knowing spawn timers for wild Pokémon like Escavalier, Aselgor, Altaria and Swablu, and the Regis. These are just a few of the main examples I see people struggling with in solo queue, but there are a lot more I could talk about if I had more time. If you ever watch the pros, or even just people really high up in Master Rank, you'll see them doing all of these things every single game. Before we continue, I just want to briefly mention that there's also something called microplay, which is the opposite of macro play. Microplay refers to how effectively you utilize your character in a game, your knowledge of that character, and optimizing your individual gameplay as much as possible to gain advantage throughout the game. Basically, to improve your microplay, just practice the character, in this case the Pokemon, that you want to get good with to learn more about what it can do, what it cannot do, and you'll naturally improve over time. One quick example of microplay is how I like to clear the center area with Froakie at the start of a game. Notice how I'm always positioning myself so that my boosted melee attack will send me towards the direction I want to go next. Doing this for each wild Pokemon might seem kind of pointless, but if done right, you can save a second or two and gank top or bot path faster. Small optimizations like that are called microplay, and while microplay is important to Pokémon Unite, improving your macro play will net you more wins. Now let's actually go into more detail regarding macro play. In Pokémon Unite, there's three primary decisions that construct the game's macro play: when to farm, when to fight, and when to score. These three elements are all equally important to improving macro play, but your decision to act upon one or the other will change from game to game and from moment to moment. Essentially, if you're not farming, you're fighting or scoring. If you're not fighting, you're farming or scoring. And if you're not scoring, you're farming or fighting. And if you're doing none of these things, then you're failing to use macro play. It might sound simple, but there's a lot more finesse to it than that. So let's go ahead and break down each of them one by one, starting with when to farm. Generally speaking, whether you're in the top path, the bottom path, or the center jungle, you'll always want to be farming whenever you see wild Pokemon on the minimap. Beating wild Pokemon will award you with Eos energy and experience points, and it's the experience that you should care the most about. One of the biggest mistakes I see players make is not farming in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the match, and as a result of that, they're stuck at level 4 and haven't evolved yet, or they haven't learned a new move yet, while the enemy is at level 5, 6, or even 7 sometimes. If you're behind, don't be afraid to take a Baltoy or two from the center jungle, and if you're ahead, keep pushing your advantage by farming as much as possible. The faster you unlock your Unite move before the enemy team, the more you can snowball your team's advantage. Take this game of me playing Greninja in the jungle for example. After clearing my jungle, I ganked top lane and helped them beat the Larvitar and Mr. Mime. We then scored a bunch of points, then secured the Altaria and Swablu that spawn. Doing this gave us even more XP, which not only made us stronger, but it also denied the Larvitar XP, keeping it weaker and easier to KO again. Once we cleared the birds, I immediately went back to my own jungle in order to farm again, which let me hit level 7, evolving to Greninja and learning Surf. At this point, I'm the highest level in the game, but I'm going to keep pushing that advantage even more by farming the Altaria that spawns in the middle of the map. You can see that Charmeleon is only level 6 before KOing Machoke, and once I KO Charmeleon, farm the birds, and then a Baltoy, I'm level 9 and have my Unite move unlocked. Having my Unite move means that my team will have an easier time winning the fight before Regieleki, which will again snowball to our advantage even further, letting us take down their first goal. But what if you're not ahead? What if you're playing from behind? Well, let's go ahead and take this Aegislash game I also recorded. Our team is already down by 2 goals and the enemy team is up by 2 levels or so. Rather than trying to fight them and defend the goal before they take it, I immediately turn around and farm the Indeedee that spawn once they destroy our goal. This lets me get to level 7 where I finally evolve into Aegislash and learn Wide Guard. However, even after that, the enemy team gets Regieleki for free and we almost lose our second top goal. So with nothing else to do, I farm more of the jungle to try and get level 9 and unlock my Unite move. Once I have it, we're able to then push back and take down their first top goal. Remember, it's important to know when you're outmatched and when you stand a chance. So if you see the enemy is up in levels, let them score some points while you farm wild Pokemon and catch back up in levels and XP. The more you try and fight them while they have the advantage, the more you'll lose, and the more you lose, the bigger their advantage will become. Speaking of, let's talk about when to fight, the second part of macro play. Before you ever load into a match, you must first know what your role is. Each Pokemon has an assigned role: attacker, defender, all-rounder, supporter, and speedster. When your team gets into a fight, it's your job to stick to your role as best as you can in order to increase your team's chances of victory. For instance, a speedster isn't meant to tank all the damage the enemy team throws out. That's the defender's job. So, when a fight breaks out, the defender needs to take as much damage as possible while also protecting their fellow players, especially weak attackers, and disrupt the enemy team with hindrances like stuns, slows, and other things. However, macro play for team fights isn't just knowing your role, it's also about knowing when to fight and what to fight for. Don't just fight over a random ball toy in the center of the area. Fight over bigger objectives like Regieleki or goals. If the enemy team is all bot fighting Registeel, let them take it. Go top and take Regieleki instead. It's currently a stronger objective in the game that basically becomes a 6th member for your team. Not only that, but it can output a lot of damage, and with its instant scoring effect, it's greater than any buff that the enemy team will get from Regirock, Registeel, or Regice. Learn to recognize when you and your team have an advantage and make the choice to fight based on that information. Are you all alone defending a goal against 4 enemies? Did one of the enemy players get KO'd right before Regieleki spawned? Is there a goal nearby they can run back to in order to heal? Look at the scoreboard. Which players have their Unite moves unlocked? If you start a fight now, will your allies be close enough to help? There's a lot of information that needs to be considered before jumping into a team fight. Let's use that same Greninja game from before as an example of when to fight and when not to fight. In the last 2 minutes of the game, Rayquaza appears. We also see that our team is really struggling in points, so we basically need Rayquaza to win the game at this point. However, in order to beat Rayquaza, we first need to defeat the enemy team in a fight. But in order to do that, we need to gain an advantage over them since their team comp is stronger than ours. Fast forward to the last 60 seconds of the game and we actually achieved that advantage. We took down Tyranitar before and managed to take down Dodrio as well. The game's now a 5v3, and we also see that Mr. Mime is nowhere near Rayquaza, instead deciding to score points bot lane. This is when we fight Rayquaza. No one on the enemy team is there, so we rush down Rayquaza. Mr. Mime and Machamp eventually show up, but it's still a 4v2 as our own Machamp was holding off Charizard and Tyranitar when they spawned. We managed to defeat Rayquaza, and me, knowing that I'm not going to be able to score, stay behind to fight Mr. Mime and Machamp, which gives my team more time to score. And in the process, I also managed to KO Machamp, meaning there's one less threat for my team to worry about. What you need to take away from this scenario is that we only fought them once we had the advantage. If we tried fighting them 5v5 when we were already behind, we would have lost. We waited until the other team was either down in numbers or not in position to defend Rayquaza. Now let's look at when not to fight. Earlier in that same game, Mr. Mime and Tyranitar are pushing into our second goal in the top path. I'm all by myself to defend it, and I know I can't win against both of them, so I run away. However, I know that Tyranitar can only hurt me if it gets close, and I can attack from range since I'm Greninja. I also know that Mr. Mime can't break the goal alone since it only has 50 points. This is where microplay comes into practice. As long as I keep my distance and use the speed flux zones to my advantage, Tyranitar won't be able to touch me, and I can keep my distance and stop him from scoring until my team arrives. Once they do show up, that's when we go all in and take down Tyranitar and chase Mr. Mime away. It was a good attempt by the enemy team to try and score there, but they weren't completely successful since I stopped Tyranitar from scoring. This brings us to the last part of macro play, knowing when to score. Believe it or not, knowing when to score actually begins when you pick your role in character select. If you pick something like a speedster, such as Talonflame, then you'll need to understand that your objective is to move around the map, farming as many wild Pokemon as you can, then scoring and getting out before the enemy team can react to you. Now that's not to say speedsters can only score, they can also fight. They're very good at diving into the backlines of the enemy team and taking out attackers. However, in most cases, speedsters should be the ones scoring the most points in each game. I actually have a video showcasing this kind of macro play with Talonflame on my channel. The link is in the description if you want to watch. But to summarize it, speedsters are great at being mobile and sneaky. so it's very common for them to sneak through the jungle and score behind your back, then run away. Some Pokemon, like Greninja or Delphox who aren't speedsters, can also get away with sneaky scoring like that because of their mobility. I'm not going to list out how exactly you should score with every Pokemon, but it's something you'll learn the more you play the same Pokemon and improve your microplay with it. But what do you do if you're not a mobile Pokemon? When do you score? There's really only 3 times you should ever really worry about trying to score. When the goal is left unguarded, either because you force the enemy off of it or they went to another lane, when you push Regieleki into a goal, which will let you instantly score, or when your team defeats Rayquaza. During the start of a match, it might also be okay to score 2 points here or 3 points there if you have a stacking item equipped like attack weight. But otherwise, you generally want to wait until you force the enemy off their own goal or if they're missing entirely. However, one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot is players ignoring a big fight in order to score a small amount of points that don't even break a goal. You can see this in my Aegislash game. Our Greninja ignores the big fight in our second bottom goal in order to score 13 points when there's still 49 health left on the goal. This is an example of when not to score. While it's true that scoring points is how you win the game, only scoring 13 points while letting the enemy team score 50 on our second goal, breaking it, is not a good trade. So to recap, if you always farm XP, only fight when you have the advantage, and score when you're given the chance, you'll improve your macro play and as a result, win more games overall. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you were able to learn something from this and can use that to improve your performance in game. There's honestly a lot more I can still talk about, but these 3 topics are the fundamentals to improving macro play in Pokemon Unite. If you did learn something, go ahead and leave a like on the video. I'd appreciate it. But until next time guys, good luck, take care, and I'll see you later.